Good morning, my name is Mark Walker. I'm here to talk to you about my channel, Teabagging Through Life. The term teabagging comes from various areas, but mainly those people who are into adrenalized sports like kitesurfing, snowboarding, skiing, wakeboarding, those kind of things, have a tagline which is teabaggers. I wasn't aware of. It's a big thing in America apparently, not over here as much in Australia. I'm going to talk to you today mainly about my sport, which is kiteboarding, and then just talk you through some of my kit, why I've got the kit I've got. Any questions that are coming up in the comments, I can address them in later videos. And I suppose if you're watching this and they talk about subscribing and liking and all that sort of stuff, that'll help out with the algorithms and whatever else it needs to be doing. Kitesurfing started when it first came out back in the late 90s, when the machines were classed as death machines, the kites, because you just had no control over them. So you had a very narrow wind range, and if it got very, very windy, you were just literally getting dragged up in the air or down the beach or into trees. There was some terrible, terrible accidents, which probably forced the manufacturers to start looking at more hand glider approach to kiteboarding, because it is a flying sport, and then you got to learn the board, but you really need to learn how to fly the kite in a safe manner first. Prior to that, I was really always into windsurfing, so it's always been water sports. And for the no wind days here, I've got a stand-up paddleboard, which is pretty heavy going. 20 minutes, half an hour on a paddleboard is hard work for a guy my age, 95. So we'll start with boards, twin tips. This is probably one of the biggest ones you can get, 1.6 meters, 6 centimeters wide. What this is for is super, super light winds, or small sails in marginal winds if you want to really just be on a twin tip. The reason you'd usually use a twin tip is because you can just go up and down without having to really go too far downwind. And also if you're in fairly shallow water, like somewhere like here, Golden Beach, which the water can be like this, and you can still get going because you just got to need clearance for your fins and the edge of the board really. But a big board like this does take a lot of water, so you need to be at least knee depth, I would say. Then you got the foot straps, pretty self-explanatory. You set them as offset or as straight as you feel. You have to play around with that because it's your knees that take the punishment if you don't. So anybody who's been into sports like snowboarding, skateboarding, anything that's heavy on your knees, you want something like this when you go out because a board, doesn't matter of the size, but with a fair bit of flex in it, because it takes all the shock out your knees, and it's really kind and friendly to you. To go along with this size of board, you'll probably be using a kite of this size, which is I'm brand agnostic. It's just that this is a good kite. So it's a duotone, which used to be North, 17 square meters. You use it with a bar, which is this one, normal width, but the lines are 27 meters long. So you put that on that big, massive big kite, and you can get out in pretty low winds, anything from about 10 knots, and get going, but have a terrible time. Because if you drop the kite of that size in that kind of wind, it's a real job and a half to get it out of the water, especially if you're in deep water. If you can stand up, it's a bit easier. So the next one again can be used for light winds, but for surf as well, is something like this. Now this is North, the brand. What this is 32 litres of volume. So it's pretty thick and wide. It's a surfboard. You could, if you all turned the ship, basically, you could paddle this back in on your own, let your kite go, paddle in, and your kite would probably wash up on the beach somewhere. And then you just go and grab your kite and your lines and fix it all up and go home. This is a little bit like Joe Biden, really. It's a bit old, it's a bit slow, and it doesn't want to turn very easily. But that's what you need when you're in light winds. You just want to be going along, unless you're really powered up. To keep your kite in the sky, you'd tack it, which is into the wind, or you just stop, turn the board around and start again the other way. So on the theme of surfboards again, this is 25 litres in volume, so flotation. So you'd be, small to paddle it as a surfboard to get in, but for safety, it's pretty good, but designed for smaller waves or flat water, higher wind. Some people go without the straps. I've got one strap on it. You can see there's a back strap here if you want it. A lot of people say don't use leashes as well. If you lose your board, you can what they call body drag to the board. If you're out in the surf and you've got a leash and there's other people, then you've less chance of somebody getting injured with your kit, because this going in on a wave, hitting some young kids, or well, hitting anybody, is not a good thing. Pretty light. It's got a lot of surface area to get you going in fairly light winds. Pretty decent channeling underneath, so it releases the water pretty well. And 3 fins as opposed to 4. The difference between 4, as I showed you earlier, is just tracking really. This is a lot more loose. It'll turn a lot easier. You need a bit more power to be going on this because it won't support you because it's not as much volume, but it's still a great board. So in conjunction with that 160 board I showed you earlier, I've got this one which is 146. If you were to talk to people maybe 5 years ago, this would be a big board, but nowadays with the flex again, it absorbs quite a bit of the power, so it takes the power out of the board. But what that means is you get a really comfortable ride. And all the pros now, especially the ones who are doing mega jumps, are going on wider profile, longer boards, because when they're coming into land, it just takes all the power out of the landing, and they don't sink as easily as well. I've got a leash on here that clips onto my harness. It will break away quite easily if I want it to, so it's not permanently attached in case there's a problem, so you can get away from all your kit. The reason I use leashes like this a lot of the time is because out here in places like Noosa on the river, there's always a lot of current washing around. It could be 5 to 6 knots of current. If you crash and you've lost your board, it's okay, you can body drag to get it, but if it's whizzing down and you're somewhere else, and I've lost a few, well, I say lost a few boards, I've recovered them later, but you don't want to be floating around in the ocean with no board, especially in current. Then what we've got, this is an old board, and I say old, but it's got some flex, but not as much as flex in that. This is 142 by 42 and a bit, but it's got a lot more rocker, so it's a bit more like a banana. So it rides more like a 138, 139. I haven't got a leash on this, because when I'm going on this, I'm usually going pretty quick. And it's okay having a leash, but if I'm doing anything like jumps over this high, you really don't want to have a leash on if you're doing jumps. And no matter what anybody says, it's not a good idea. You can see it's got all these channels designed to grip and to channel the water through quick, so it's a fast board. And talking about leashes and so on, if you are going to use a leash, you should have one of these. So any kind of soft helmet, something that's going to take some of the impact if that board comes back and whacks you in the head. Let me tell you, when a board hits you in the head, it's not a pleasant experience. And on top of that, there's multiple versions of this, which is a flotation. Now this one has got flotation down to about here. Really, you shouldn't be going out without one of these anyway, because they've got protection as well. So somebody hits you, you hit something, you fall off on a sandbar, it'll absorb some of the power. Also, you want visibility. I've got the LBGTQ colours, I think. I've got red, yellow and green. So this goes over the top of my flotation vest or impact vest, whatever you want to call it. The thing is, you're out in the water, people can see you. If you're in black and they don't catch you out the side of their eye and somebody does a jump, they can come in at a feral speed and clean you up. And last but not least is a harness. This is a seat harness, but you get them that just go around your waist. I use a seat harness because you can just absorb more power. Plus also I've got an injury here from when I was kite surfing in Melbourne maybe 5-6 years ago, and I had boots on this board, so I was strapped in, I couldn't get out. Did this stupid jump off chop, ended up getting flown through the air, landed and ripped all of my abs open here, and they call that diastasis recti. So it has nothing to do with your ass, but apparently pregnant women get it a fair bit. And there are abdominal exercises you can do, which I do regularly when I remember and when I've got the energy right, to bring your abs back together and give you some strength. We don't want to do a full skit on harnesses, but you can see this again has got a leash which connects to the bar connects to the kite. If you don't want to be connected to the kite, you just pull the plug. Most of you guys will understand what that is because it's all available on social media. And then last but not least is this one, and you pull this and the whole thing's gone. So 2 kites here, ignore the sizes on them. I've got a 12 there, this is a 14. It's called the Evo, which is just the brand name. What this is a 3-strut kite, higher aspect than a wave kite, and I'll talk you through what that means in a minute. The thing is with these, anything under 12 meters for somebody my size, which is 100 kilos, best way to describe it is it just can't handle the pressure as much as a 5-strut kite. The 3-strut kites are great in light winds because the kite's a lot lighter and it's just tweaks and turns a bit quicker. I'm getting another one of these. This is a wave kite. The difference is this, when you're going down the line, when you're surfing normally like this, the kite will sit in the window for you most of the time and just drift with you. And it's very wide at the back, so it catches all the wind and you have it a little bit lower when you're going along. Whereas something like this, although they say it will work with waves, it's higher aspect, so it doesn't drift anything like as good as this particular kite would. Now that's a 9 meter. Now the thing is, with these kites, these wave kites, especially this brand and this name Neo, this is more like a 10 meter kite because it's got so much grunt. If you're going out on a 9 meter on one of these boards, you'd probably go out in 15 to 20 knots because you've got plenty of volume. You don't need volume with the board like you would with a twin tip. You need a lot more power to keep you going. If I was to go out on that, which I did do 3 weeks ago, in 25 to 30 knots of wind, it's massively overpowered, even on a twin tip. And so I didn't have a very good day. And the smaller kites are very, very quick in the air. And so any sort of disturbance, if you catch for example out here, the sandbars, and you flip over, the kite can be anywhere in the sky. And what happened to me, I flipped, the kite went this way, and then it just lifted me up in the air. So it really saved me from a big crash. But really that's the difference between an all-round free ride kite and a wave kite. And then on top of this, you've got things like the Rebel, which is a 5 strut instead of 3 strut, which is far better in overpowered conditions because it's a lot more stable, and also that stability gives it more wind range, so you don't get into trouble if you go out in wind that's a little bit too strong for, say, something like that. This is a 14. People will be out on 12-meter kites. They're 75, 80 kilos. That's great. If I was to go out on my 12-meter there in the same conditions, I'd be underpowered purely because of my weight. And so I'd be out on a 14 when they're out on 12s. Some of them are even on 10s. What I'd like to do now is ask you guys what kind of kit you've got, why you've got it, what you think of my kit, obviously, any tips you've got, because nobody's the best in the world at it. Even the pros are always tuning and tweaking their kit. And why you use what you use and where you use it, and any comments you've got that can help everybody else and be part of this tribe that we're all part of. We'd really appreciate it. So that's it for my kit wrap up, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.